There are good sides to a situation as well as bad. And when I say bad, I'll just say could be compromising, could be strenuous or stressful. All these different things that we go through in life have their highs and their lows, right? You know, you try to make lemonade, you try to take that sour component and you try to mix it up with some sweetness in order to recreate it in the way in which it might be helpful, useful. You know, growing up, I read this book, and I don't even know how I stumbled on this book because I believe that this book was probably not age appropriate, although I don't know what age would have been appropriate given the experiences that have been had. Black Girl Lost by, I think, Donald Goings, where this young lady had on a spring jacket throughout most of the book. I felt, I mean, with all the struggles she went through being poor and not being met with the resources that she really needed. You know, but the book, actually I felt like I could relate to the book, being that I had to wear a spring jacket throughout my winters and Chinese slippers, you know, during that time as well, because I was not provided the right things. You have to be careful what you implement, what you don't even provide. This is the reason why when I prayed, I always asked for my own family, but for it to happen in a way in which I wouldn't have to struggle. Because my children, I mean, this has been a prayer that I've had over the years, I mean, and starting in childhood, because I saw how you could be broken through being poor, and how your worth, how you wouldn't know your worth, and how you could be mistreated because of not having, because of lack thereof. You know, parents sometimes come into that level of responsibility and don't know what to do with it because they did not have the right mentors or support themselves. Now, I know there are some families who came into money and they were able to provide, and it wasn't picture perfect. However, through my own eyes, seeing what it could do to a family not having. You know, I remember growing up, a lot of the poor kids took chances that they probably should not have. Took risks because they didn't have the money, going into a store and stealing a popsicle. My own self with the Twinkie. Just the other day, a boy walked out of the store with something, and his friend told him not to do it. But he said, man, ain't nobody paying attention. And just that by chance, a police officer just happened to be at the back exit. And when he walked past the officer was paying attention to a conversation that was going on, but in his peripheral vision, he noticed this little black boy walking out of the store with a soda and a snack. And he ran down the steps and said, hey, do you have a receipt for that? And the boy was almost in the clear. And his friend looking at him was saying, oh my goodness. Now these two boys had gone into the supermarket earlier asking for cookies. And the gentleman at the bakery said, are you guys able to have these cookies? And he said, we're still kids. We might look big. We might, you know, they must be in high school. And he said, I'm still a kid. And it's true, I definitely would agree. But had these boys had money in the first place, this would not have been an experience that they would have had. You see, they were hungry when they came into the supermarket. And when you're hungry, you sometimes can find yourself being compromised. When I was little, I remember not knowing that we were poor, running through the house with my sliding up and down the hall, just happy to be happy. Woke up in a happy mood. And I remember opening up the refrigerator and there being only one piece of bread in that, a small portion of bread was in the refrigerator, and that was it. I remember my mother had played the number and she hit. But when she hit the number, she bought all these different things and forgot that we needed sneakers. And she felt so bad that she went into her room and closed the door behind her. I know that she might have been crying on the other side. My older brother and she were the closest. For some reason, we could not make a connection because, again, my grandmother, I had been raised by my grandparents. The lack of the connection caused us to more so not understand each other. I remember growing up being very bitter and angry with her because I wanted to know where my father was and she didn't have answers. You know, there are so many different aspects of childhood and adulthood that are yet to be explored. And this is the reason why journaling is so good too. When you're journaling, you're expressing yourself, you're allowing yourself to put those thoughts on paper and to free yourself in so many ways. These different experiences are there to help you learn, to help you grow. And we don't always see it as that, you know. When you miss so many years of connection and the person comes back into your life later on, it's like makeup time. And you can't make up for all those years. At least in my case, they weren't able to be made up. But you can grow and look through these experiences and learn from them so that you don't have to experience them again, and your own children won't have to suffer with their lack thereof. You know, I remember we used to create games. When you're rich, you might be able to buy it out of a catalog. You might be able to go online and order certain things and get things off of Amazon. We didn't have that. But what we did have is scalesies. Scalesies, you take a bottle top, a metal bottle top, and you take your crayons and you take them and you melt them on top of a radiator. This is what we do. A radiator is a heater in the house, in apartments in New York City. We were on T-Bot Avenue and we had these bottle tops that we collected the day before having to come in before the street lights came on. Ran upstairs and took all the broken crayons that were broken already. We were supposed to get a new box replacement because a lot of the crayons had been messed up behind, coloring in the coloring books. So we took the crayons and broke them up, and of course you choose your favorite colors, and you make yours stand out in such a way. Like sometimes you take like a breadcrumb, or you take something like a hair barrette, and you know, a barrette in your hair, and or a bobby pin, and you swirl the colors together in the way that you wanted them. You take the white, you take the blue, you take the green, and you swirl it, and then you'd add another color after that's already been melted down, and the other color you put on top, that'll also add extra weight, so that when you go to sling your bottle top on that triangle, you'd have more weight, and you'd think that you'd be able to win the game over someone else who didn't have as much weight. So many creative games that you have to create, you know. Although my favorite game is still red light, green light. That was the game of choice for me because it had a lot of surprise. It had a lot of fear because, you know, you feared that someone would catch you before you turned your back, or you feared that the person would catch you before you caught them, you know. So many different games that we played, so many different forms of exploration. As a child, you are exploring things and you just want things to be a certain way. You want to be able to enjoy life and have so much fun. Children, are a great aspect to your life a great gift to your life, a great asset to your life, because they have fresh ideas. They don't know what tomorrow brings, but they're so happy today. They live in the moment, something that adults have to learn from. That's why the Bible speaks of the gift of children. It speaks of the innocence of children. And that innocence is what is taken away when they are left with so much to worry about. I remember teaching in Arizona and having a student with gray hair, and I'd never seen that before. His whole head was filled with gray. But he was so wise. And he was the provider in the family of support. And he reminded me of myself. Sometimes when our parents get upset with us, sometimes they're getting upset because you remind them of themselves. And they fear your journey when they don't know what or where their money's going to come from. When we are trying to be providers, we're trying to have that balance. Because if you have enough money, if you have enough resources, you can invest in your child. I saw something online the other day, and people were very bitter about this. It was a pep rally, and they had this one girl who was standing out, and she was doing such an exotic dance. And when I saw it, I was shocked because I couldn't believe that they had this girl in the middle of the gym doing this exotic dance, and they were cheering her on like, give us more. And I'm thinking, I'm hoping, I'm praying that this young lady is not, or should I say she is shown a better way. Because by the dancing that she was doing, I've never been to a strip club before, but I'm pretty sure she was borderline crossing certain boundaries on that one. We don't always know what we're doing when we are growing up, and parents too. Parents are sometimes growing up with their children. Excuse me, and they've not been provided the support. I at least had grandparents and people at the church, people who I've observed, and my godparents, God bless them, my godparents providing examples of a mother and a father in a home, providing for their children, showing concern, in high school, going to their house after school or during lunchtime because their house was right across the street from the school. And they were so concerned. They were always worried and always saying, we worried about you. We pray for you, And, they were a great support when I was growing up. I mean, my father and stepmother worked a lot, and I was the big sister. I was somewhat a parent myself, too soon, having to provide for everyone else, having to, cook and clean, as my youngest brother used to say, younger brother, not the youngest, would say, Cinderella, poor little Cinderella. A lot of these experiences make you stronger, but they also teach you that you don't want to have children when you don't have the support, when you don't have the finances, when you don't have. Again, some people might see this as, me expressing bitterness, and it's not bitterness. It's expressing experiences so that I might be able to share something that lands on the ears of people who might make a better choice. Teenagers who might not decide to explore in that arena before time, and knowing that they might not be able to provide for that baby that comes along. Children are a blessing, and I'm going to tell you, one of the most beautiful memories I have is when my little brother was little, and he was dressed, oh my goodness, my grandmother used to dress him to the T. And just looking at him explore and how he loved friendship and how he loved being a little brother, how he loved the attention that he received. And he was so sweet. Oh my goodness. He cared and he loved everyone around him, as he does now. Always looking out for other people. You know, when a woman is pregnant and she's in love, it's expressed through that child. That boy is, he's not a boy, he's a man, but he's my younger brother, so it's hard for me sometimes not to see him in his childlike experiences of exploring, running through the cornfield and grabbing a husk of corn, pulling it apart and eating it right there while we lay underneath the apple tree in Carthage, North Carolina. The one place that I could actually experience and express my childhood, and nobody pushed me to do anything more. Nobody asked me to lift a finger. Only thing they wanted me to do, my Aunt Neat and my Aunt Barbara, was to just be a child. They loved the fact that I wanted to run through the field and I wanted to eat outside and eat the fruits and the vegetables that were growing fresh right there. They always called me in to eat, but I never wanted to come in because I was afraid that I would miss my tree. Back then, I would write and journal, you know, even though I was so little, I did understand the power of words. You know, I used to love the, certain trees were my favorite trees, you know, the weeping willow. But my favorite tree to date is going to be that banyan tree because it reminds me of a grandfather who is offering his love and hugs to everyone with every strand of a string that looks like it is pulling from it. They call it I call it the Tarzan tree as well, because it has those different strings that you can grab and swing from. Although I've always been recently I've been somewhat afraid to swing from them. But it's important that we look at life and we realize that there is a great gift in all that God has provided. Even when I was lying there eating an apple, should not have been laying down eating an apple in my Aunt Neat and Aunt Barbara's yard. When they called me in, they always made fresh food. I remember them jarring the fruits and the vegetables so that during the wintertime they could still have those fruits and those vegetables. That's the reason why I bought a canning set from Williams-Sonoma, just to do this very thing. Excuse me, but tomatoes don't taste the same. So I would rather grow my own so that I can can them and provide them for family members when they come. At least this was always my prayer, my thought, when I saw family as truly family. You know, my Aunt Neat and my Aunt Barbara will always be family to me. I will never forget, and I will always cherish the memories of them. Cherish the memories of having two fathers who were not my fathers. My pop, my godfather, who sat me down and spoke to me on so many different levels, telling me how, you know, I needed to make certain choices so that I wouldn't have to worry. He was very concerned because he never met my father, but he saw my father in Harlem a few times and could not understand why he never approached him and spoke to him man to man. To know where your daughter would be going and not knowing what kind of home she would be going and spending so much time in. You know, parents might not have a book to teach you how to be a better parent, but we can all learn from our mistakes. And I say we, even though I'm not a parent. But I say this because I've been a parent in the classroom for so many years. I remember having to braid one of my students' hair because they teased this boy because I thought it was jealousy because his hair was so curly and all over the place. And as a teacher, you say, you crossed the bounds, somebody said. But no, I didn't. I was a parent at that moment, and in braiding his hair and causing him to not have to experience the pain of children around him teasing him made a difference in his life as well as mine. I didn't have to hear the complaining of them bothering him. I didn't have to discipline anyone. And he went back outside and he played and enjoyed himself. Sometimes you have to look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture. The bigger picture is that we can love like we've never loved before by providing the support, by creating a safe environment for children, just as I had in that yard. I have to continue to look at that yard because not only was there a garden, and I know that house must have been smaller than I thought, but as a child it was huge, and the yard was huge, tremendous even. Being able to spin on that wheel in the backyard and get sick because I ate too much, and then I decided to spin on that spinner. And, excuse me, being able to lay in the grass and didn't care about the bugs and actually admired a cricket for jumping from one rose to the next. You know, there's so many things that we take so seriously in life. If we had a childhood like that one, if I could expand the time that I spent with these two beautiful women, they didn't care. They just put that apron on and did what they needed to do. My Aunt Nee walked with a limp. Excuse me. I often asked why. She was such a wonderful, loving woman. She was a parent to me while I was there. My Aunt Barbara, her mother, she was a bigger woman, straightened her hair and always clipped it up. And she wore her hair up and she looked like, in my eyes, she looked like Mahalia Jackson. I never really heard her sing, but I know she was in that kitchen always cooking something, always trying to outdo what she made the day before. And she did it with love. The two of them. Aunt Barbara giving such great hugs. Both of them gave great hugs. But I would play and play until even nighttime. And if it rained even, I would lay in the hammock and wait for the sun to come back out. And while lying there and sleep, the sun never came back up. And the day turned night. I went to sleep and I always woke up in a beautiful white room. The bed was covered with a coverlet with beautiful designs and I'll say, what is it? It was like lace on the bottom trim of it, and it hung from the bed. And they used to make those beds up every morning. I attempted to try to help them make the bed one time and they laughed the whole time. But I really did try to help, and they knew it. They knew my heart more so than anyone else. Wow. I didn't realize how much I missed these two women. In our childhood, we can have such great experiences. These experiences were rewarding. Even in high school, going for lunch, and one of the parents being there and saying, "What you guys doing?" The concern in my godmother's eyes, always concerned, knowing that someone cared, you know. These children need to know that people care. They need to be loved. They need you to hear them out, and they need that understanding. Growing up poor, the children don't have to feel that. They don't have to even know it. Because when love is present, all that other stuff dissipates. It's important that we participate in the loving, in the nurturing, in the support of these children. I was recently asked to be an advocate, and I laughed when the woman asked me about my experiences, because I thought I had been an advocate all my life. even in my babysitting. You know, my babysitting, when I would babysit, I had to clean the house because I didn't feel that my job was complete if the house were not clean. And I didn't care. Once I could put the kids to bed, if the living room, the kitchen this was something that I did because I know what it is to run a home. I've known it from childhood. I remember my grandmother taking me to Mrs. Masiko's house when she was a maid and seeing this woman's house. And my grandmother used to do a lot of sleeping. Mrs. Masiko allowed it because she said, this woman had all these children. I don't even know how she does it. Her husband, had his eyebrow raised constantly because he couldn't understand how it was that this woman didn't do half of the work that he thought she was being paid for. But even he was humbled at some point when he saw my grandmother's feet one time. Her ankles had swelled up because she had been working, and she'd been working at home and coming there, and she had been working at the church, and she'd baked all these pies, and she didn't get any rest. And when he saw her ankles, you see, this is how God works. God will show people certain things that you didn't even have to explain. He'll show them so that this person receives humility. You are humbled by another person, seeing what they might have gone through, to see what they're experiencing, and knowing that you are blessed in the way that you were raised, or blessed in not having that experience. But honor the person. I met this old woman recently, and I offered her cookies because that's all I had, and I felt bad because I said, man, I don't have anything more. And I saw her light. She had a beautiful essence to her. Everyone has their own glow, whether it be black, yellow, green, blue. I noticed this while teaching. I would look at the children and I would see the light above their heads, the essence around, almost like a halo, but it'd be a color, a hue. And I would know, based upon that hue, which child needed my extra attention. Now, it didn't come easy at first. It was a book that I'd read that one of my colleagues was reading, and I drew interest in it. And, this was during my latter portion of teaching in New York. I'd seen a dark element around a child's head. And, I had released everyone else to doing their work, and this one child, I had to take that time. The color changed, I noticed, while in conversation. The child did not understand certain things that were going on in the home, and very bitter. Throughout the conversation of just allowing the child to free himself, some things changed. That's why I know that, you can't be two people, but you can actually be a support to the one person. So again, with all these different experiences, and I gotta go because my time's up. With each experience, we can lend a helping hand and love like you've never loved before. When you have this special, unique time that you can spend with these children, know that love is when you can listen to them, when you can help them in some way, or when you can even provide a treat. Some of the rewards that I provided the children, they weren't all stickers or pens, and I never did get those jacks from Pottery Barn because the order came in too late and the school year ended. But Pottery Barn for kids has those things, and they're not soliciting or paying me for this. But it's important that we know that we can find those little toys that we grew up with and share them with our children. So that's been my word, guys. You know, it is so lovely being you. When you can show love, when you can spread love, when you can experience love, know that you are loved. Have a wonderful day.